Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Agents at Work. Today, I have the pleasure to be interviewing a co-founder of a company that I really like called Merch. Hi, Gil.
Hey, Jordi, thanks for having me.
I am really excited about this one. A big fan since 2020 when you created your company. I
Yep.
was mentioning before, like, it was such a good idea. When I saw the problem, I was like, okay, I think these people are going to make it because it sounds like companies have this problem and nobody wants to deal with it. So
Yeah.
finally, it's a company that steps up and said, like, okay, I will take it for everybody's,
Yeah.
like, nice thing.
We're the micro dirty jobs of tech.
Yes. But it's a really good work. So,
Yeah.
companies, it's a typical thing that you increase GDP in the world for a percentage just
That's
by
fair.
plumbing stuff. And you're like, okay, like this is really important.
Yeah.
So for people who don't know about Merge, what is Merge?
Yeah, good question, Jordi. So Merge is a provider of what we call unified APIs. So companies that want to offer integrations to their customers never have to build just one. They have to build a lot because their customers use a bunch of different platforms. So what Merge does is provide a single API that our customers integrate with that lets them offer native integrations in their products so that their customers can connect to the third-party platforms they're using and bring their data into that product. And we do this for a variety of verticals within software. So we provide one API for all accounting software, one for ticketing, HR, file storage, CRM, and so on. We do this for many different categories.
For some people, this may be a bit abstract. So can we put it with names? Like who would be like a typical client? And then, let's take a vertical like HR and what kind of integrations people are offering there.
Absolutely. So I can give you a good one for HR and also accounting, because weirdly enough, there's a lot of overlap in people who use those categories. So think of financial services or credit card providers, these corporate card solutions, think Ramp, Brex, a lot of those platforms that provide these credit cards, what they want to do is two things. One, they want to automate the creation and mailing of those credit cards to new employees and revoking those credit cards when an employee leaves the company. So they integrate with HR systems, they pull in all the employee info, and they get a constantly live update of any changes to that data. So someone new joins in engineering, send them a credit card, $20 a day for lunch only. They leave, deactivate that credit card. But then also companies that use these corporate cards want that data flowing into their accounting systems as well. So what they'll do is post the transactions as those credit card purchases occur over to the accounting system. So at the end of the month, the finance team can run reconciliation across all expenses.
That makes a lot of sense. And you can see that even in enterprise companies, they have teams called integrations. When I get out of university, I was like, what do they do? Now I know, and I know how hard that is. Since the beginning, were they your typical clients or it was more like startups?
It was startups. I think we started small and grew, and now, we sell to the largest companies in the world, but that was not overnight. That was definitely a logo ladder, building trust, building up our security program, building up the robustness of our product. So we started, one of our first customers was actually Drata, the cybersecurity and compliance platform. And when they started using us, they were 30 people. And so they grew alongside us, and we were able to use them later, obviously, as a logo that really was, well known and was known for security, and associate that with our brand as we moved up market and brought on larger customers. So we definitely, I like to call it, climb the logo ladder.
And how was those early days? Like, how do you get these clients, even if they are startups? You just cold email them?
Yeah. So it was a mix of things. One, we worked all the time because we started at the beginning of COVID. So we had unlimited time. There was nothing better to do than work, because work meant we could at least be around the couple coworkers we had as a brand new startup. So we did a lot of everything. And then what we did was a mix of cold outbound, LinkedIn outbound. And then also we followed the lean methodology, which basically says, before you go in and build an MVP, go talk to 100 potential customers and get their validation and look for them to be overly affirming. And, they're going to try to be like, oh, great idea. You have to really dig in. And so I think of the 100, we had 90 tell us this is actually an awesome idea and we would use it and we would pay for it. And so we had a stream of 90 people who had said, yes, we will use this platform. Of those, I think when we first opened the platform, 12 onboarded. But that was a huge number for us to get started and have 12 people actually not just onboarding, but we're a deep technical platform. They had to build into us. They had to roadmap us. Fortunately, they were startup, so they did that much faster. And then from there, we were able to use those logos and also just continue doing cold outbound, LinkedIn marketing, trying to go viral, a mix of everything.
Couple of things on this. The first one is about books. Apart from the lean startup that you mentioned, there is the mom test that is really good for this kind of work? Like, how do you ask? Because as you said, like people try to be like overlying, like happy about what you say, like, oh yeah, I would use this for sure.
Yeah.
And then you build it and they don't. And it's normal. Like people take it personally. It's like, oh, you made me put all this work. It's like, no, nobody asked for this. Like you were listening, like you were hearing what you wanted.
Yeah.
So actually converting 12 people, it's really, really crazy. And more for something that it's not like just one integration. It's like, oh, okay, you do this and then it's gone. It's actually something that is pretty close to the core and business logics.
Yeah, we're almost at the AWS layer, right? Like we are almost core infrastructure for people. We're basically saying, hey, give us something that should be its own microservice in your system and just hand that over to us.
And I should blame you because now people get used to this kind of the things that integrations power and they take it for granted. So the more people use your platform, the more people say like, well, integrations, I mean, it's a given. The same way that when Google Maps appeared, like having maps in your app, that's a given. Like it's not that hard anymore. You just call an API, you have the map. Now for integrations, like they become like the thing.
Jordi, I like to say similar to SOC 2, which I also believe is a virus, we're a virus. You kind of create this effect where perception is that it's everything and that it's essential. And it's similar. I mean, SOC 2 is slightly different, but it's like security certification. And the easiest way to bring on a new vendor is if they also have SOC 2. So yeah, it just spreads.
Okay. So now you have been building this company for 5 years. So you said that you were working a lot at the beginning and it was before Cursor or any of this, because in 2020, I guess that you were a couple of engineers just building stuff. What changed since then? Like since the beginning, LLMs appear and now, like, can you give us like a vision of how the company started changing internally?
So a lot of things that we've done. So we've started using AI internally, but the backstory on this is, we started building this company. We knew we want to build a platform for building new integrations. So we built a lot of tooling that makes it really easy to sort of get that initial setup going. And then, of course, there is the manual effort of having to get that last mile of the integration. And that's what makes coding integrations really hard, right? It's easy to get the base set up. It's really hard to get something productionized. And with AI tools, it actually made a lot of that early infrastructure that we had invested in not super useful anymore because AI could just write from scratch the base of the integration relatively well. So we adopted a lot of that. I think we sort of had to take this position of like, we need to ignore everything we've already heavily invested in. That's a sunk cost. We need to say, if we were to start right now, what would be the best decision for Merge? And that often comes to, we should use AI to build this or to assist with this. And that meant we are actively and heavily investing in removing all of our core infrastructure and moving it over to let us use AI to just launch these new integrations. And we've already done a lot of work there. That's in our product. We across the team are using AI like crazy. So we have our support teams are using AI heavily. We have finance and ops. They're in RevOps. They're really big on it. Recruiting. And then of course, engineering is coding really heavily with it. And then, of course, on top of all of that, we launched a new AI product.
On product, let's start there. Like you said something that it's pretty crazy when you hear it from the outside, but living it has to be like even crazier. That this is the idea of, we have been building something, looks like we have product market fit. People love it. New technology appears. And now investors say, like, well, why wouldn't AI do that? It's like, well, there are people that say like, it's harder than that, AI cannot do it. There are other people that say, well, it can help. And we'll actually be the ones that, I guess that people in 2023 were pitching investors, I am the merge of AI. I just like, well, I'm sorry, like the merge of AI, it's merge. Yeah. So how was that transition?
Yeah, I mean, so one funny fact is the largest LLM providers in the world use merge. So we're good with the idea that AI is not fully there yet, notably because as humans, we argue how the integration should function. So I think, yeah, that's been okay. But what we are thinking about still is, one, how we can make the experience of our product better, right? Nothing has changed in the fact that Merge helps companies get access to their customers' data. That's a competitive advantage that inherently makes your product better and creates somewhat of a moat in a world where moats are completely going away in software. So we have that, and we saw that actually what's funny is now with AI, everyone finally, in the past, people didn't have access to the same level of software talent. And so there were some moats of being able to build better. But now, like, there's none of that. And you basically, everyone has access to the same models. We're moving towards a world of democratized intelligence, right? And so what's been cool about all of it, though, is that there hasn't been any change in need for integrations and for data, because now everyone has the same LLMs. The only advantage that someone has is the underlying data that they're feeding to that model as context. So demand for Merge's product and synced data sets has only increased a ton. So we've incremented our revenue growth. It's hit a new curve because of AI. And also, we're now thinking about agentic integrations and how those look in a world of MCP and other new advancements where we've launched new products.
And I guess that this is the new product that you were mentioning that you launched?
So our core product is still heavily in use by AI companies. In fact, it's actively being adopted by the top AI companies because they want to sync the data set. You see this quite a bit where companies have to decide, when I integrate with my own or my customers' data, do I want to create a copy of that data set and bring it over and likely vectorize and embed it in a vector store, or do I want to use MCP or sort of live API calls where I let the agent decide what endpoint to call and then take that data back? There's pros and cons. We can get into if you want, but pros and cons of both approaches. Our classic product, our unified product, is a synced product where we're bringing full data sets across and normalizing to a single format. That's essential for semantic search for a lot of AI-based use cases, but also it's expensive to run. You have a full copy of the data set. You run into rate limits. You run into partnership limits. There are some inherent disadvantages there versus live syncing is live API requests is really cheap. It's very flexible, but it also doesn't give you the same abilities to do retrieval in good ways because you're limited by the access patterns of the underlying APIs. So our new product is that MCP live calling. And when you combine that with our classic synced data set, you end up being able to really do anything with third-party data and AI.
If the way you already presented it, you have synced and live. The synced is okay, with merge, you could do the connection, and that's one of the superpowers. But then an engineer, I guess, that had to say well, the connection is done now. I need to put the business logic on what should I do with that data. And before LLMs, that had to be programmed beforehand. Yeah. Now with AI, I guess that the difference is the connection is there, but the program doesn't need to be done beforehand. The agent can come and start consuming through the goal. So I guess that's where the need comes from. Well, before it was everything synced. Now we need live endpoints or live connections for this.
Exactly. And the sort of equivalent for those who aren't super familiar with MCP is it's really just two main functions. There's one called list tools, which the agent knows how to call, and it returns to the agent a standard format of all the functionalities or tools / basically just functions that can be run against the third party, and then a call tool endpoint that lets you actually invoke the tool with arguments. And they're all geared towards the agent being able to call those easily.
This product is already live, people are using it. I guess that you gather data. Do you see what are the main usages? What are the tools that people are requiring for this kind of jobs?
Yeah, it's really broad. Perplexity, for example, uses our agent handler product. They built the linear connector with it. They've done CRM connectors. They've done some chat connectors. So, you're seeing really broad use cases. I think what's really common right now, though, is sort of the core units of work, the core software that each vertical in an office is using.
Makes sense. And this is something that engineers have to do, even for MCP, it's mainly an engineer that puts it in product, or you see verticals inside the teams itself, operations, finance, and things like that. Instead of building internal tools, you say, well, the tool is the agent, and it can actually do a lot of things now that it's connected to real world data.
Yeah. I mean, so what's interesting is you don't need to build a full sort of graph style or workflow style agent to utilize MCP to take actions, because generally LLMs are really good at tool selection to accomplish a task. Given an ask do X thing, then do X, then do X, and given a bunch of tools, it's very good at determining the workflow it needs to run to get that done. And so by providing what is essentially a plug and play tool set that can connect to any major agentic framework or LLM, Agent Handler makes it so that you just select the tools you want to have the functionality to be able to communicate with, and it's just plug and play with whatever you're choosing to use, whether you're using some non-technical agent builder or you are coding your agent.
So I guess that the granularity of the tools right now are pretty high. So the task is actually like really like one operation, like list the last people in my CRM or give me something from one connection, like my last transactions. Do you see then people having to build agents on the other side to actually use these? And do you see merge actually helping in this direction too? Because after all, if you are seeing what people need to build and everyone fighting to build the same thing, it's something that you can build on the merge side. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, when you want an ask, you don't need to do like this granular thing. Like you
Yeah.
can go one level higher, ask and I will deliver.
Yeah. So what's really interesting is deciding what can be done as one giant prompt versus what needs to be broken down into an agent. And the general sort of idea there of sort of like how to piece them together is, if you want something to be deterministic, you want the outcomes to be mostly reliable, you want to break it down as much as possible, right? An agent's going to be much better at, telling it, get me channels on Slack, posts to, or come up with a random haiku, post that to general, versus get me tickets from Slack, then come up with a haiku, then you can't really validate in between. So it's better to separate that out, make it composable, and combine them into sort of one workflow. And that's why, so Agent Handler, our product, provides those smallest level components. And then agent builders or just direct LLM calls can decide how they want to use them.
And when I hear these workflows, I think a lot about Zapier. And I see many people that's like, oh, but this is Zapier again. Like, why do they call them agents? They are just like workflows. But actually, even the interface that you use for building them, like this idea of give me channels or give me this source, transform it, store it in this other tool, being able to direct it this way, I think that already has a lot of value versus having to drag and drop stuff, because
Yeah.
most of these workflows are used only once. It's not even like an automation. It's like right now we can do like, I feel like a Harry Potter, like you're able to just state things with some magical words and
Yeah.
things keep happening. So it's amazing.
Yeah, it's really been amazing. And what's also been really interesting is that these workflow products have been around forever and they just never hit their stride. Like the deep workflow products that let you drag and drop blocks, all of that. And the day that these workflow products started introducing the AI node, talk to an LLM or whatever, it solves all the problems that have plagued workflows for a long time, or a lot of them, not all of them. They solve a lot of issues I can go into, but it does solve some of them. And so now you're seeing those N8N, a lot of those platforms just really taking off because finally those workflows are a little bit more user-friendly, a little bit more human-centric, and let you do more with AI.
Even like having natural language to communicate what you want to do, it really helps because one example was Excel. Like I knew that Excel, the tool, is really powerful. Many times as a founder, I want to do something with spreadsheet, and until LLMs, I had to ask my friend, listen, I know that Excel can do this, so you are the wizard, go and do it. Like I just don't know the formula, but I know what I want. And now you can just express it and the software goes and does it, and you're like, okay, like I feel like much more powerful, to be fair.
Yeah, sounds good to me. Our finance team is relieved. They have no one coming to their desks anymore asking for help.
So how do you use it internally? Like you said that different teams, like you had like these three pillars. That was like the product, the team, and then like selling to the companies that are AI companies. For the team, how are people adopting this? Like, was it hard? Like, how many people are you at your company?
Yeah. So one of the things that I have found is that it's really good to appoint, you see the employees at your company who are really excited about AI. I think the requirement is everyone's using AI, but if someone's not passionate about something, they're not going to be the ones to really level it up and drive it. So we identified the people who are just really excited about AI. That was one of our RevOps leaders. That was one of our engineering leaders. That was an IC in recruiting. And when we had all that, we came together as a team. We're going to get you budget to do the things you need to do. You have to justify it. But those people were just so excited about it that when they got those tools, they adopted them. They pushed them out to their team. They told them how to use them. And then they taught them how to use them in more advanced ways and create new things on them. So when we look at RevOps, a lot of our just normal tasks, even, in accounting and like revenue collection, like all of that, we've just built agents that go in and can handle this using agent builders. So non-technical people, or, we're an API company, right? Everyone here is like a certain level of technical. So we have a lot of that. Then for recruiting, we bought an off the shelf tool that's automating a lot. It's actually scary. And then of course we're using Windsurf, but more coding tools. We also use Claude Code quite heavily. So
how do people share this internally? I think that you're really big to be in office, right? Like you have like offices in multiple places. I think there's like 3 locations now.
Yeah. We have our SF New York, Berlin. We do lunch and learns, like brown bag lunches. We do those quite a bit. But I think that, again, like one thing that I've really stopped, I think at the beginning I was like, everyone needs to be in. I don't know if you guys have seen the Zapier AI proficiency table that talks about like what level of proficiency you're at. We were like, everyone must be transformative and blah, blah. And I actually like have taken that back a little bit. And to me, every department must have transformative representation who is doing that for their team. At least for now, that's what I'm finding to be successful.
I see. So usually like identifying these people inside the team, it's easy because they come forward and it's like, hey, I want budget. Like, have you seen this tool? I want to try it.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of like, yeah, they were on tools they wanted to try. Or, we did also push. Like it's not going to come naturally either way. And so there was a lot of us talking to the company like, hey, every team is going to be having major AI initiatives. Talk to your manager if you're interested, that sort of thing. And then managers saying, like, look, you all want things to get promote, especially at the higher levels. Like, how do you move up? It's not by successfully completing projects anymore because that's an expectation. It's by impacting the whole company. It's by having org-wide impact. And that comes from AI as one possible low-hanging fruit. So for a lot of people, it was a really exciting area to level up and also accept that like this is the future. And if I don't do this now, it's going to be bad for me too.
Was it hard to track actually the impact of these tools? Like, are they bringing value to the company?
Yeah. It's hard to track impact, I would say, but I think there's some that are just super clear ROI. There's others that are like, look, we actually aren't maybe saving tons of time, but someone doesn't have to do this grunt work that they hate doing. Like I think there's other things besides cost and time savings. We are definitely a lot more efficient, especially with our new product, especially with our ability to roll out new things. But I see like some outlandish claims on, from enterprises, which are by the way the slowest to change and adopt, even in tech. And like their claims are like, oh, we're 80% more efficient, whatever. Like, I don't buy it for a second.
Yeah, 80% sounds too much. I think that it's hard to track, but people who are doing it, you just see that they are outputting more stuff. And a lot of time is on the KPIs that they already have, they are not improving that much, but then they are doing like many more things. And I think that for many people, that's hard to track. So they say, well, if there is no data, I don't believe you. And you are like, well, people doing it, like they are telling you, like it really changes how you work and what you can achieve.
It does. Even when I think about like, it increases our confidence. It increases like when I think about specs, right? In the past, someone could write a product spec and that's great. And like, it's just not tangible or visceral though. But when someone goes and uses Lovable or uses Figma Make and just makes that mock-up, and then describes their decisions on the live presentation, you get visceral buy-in from the team who are there and they're like, we are all feeling really confident in this. Let's go. So yeah, I think like there's a lot of ways that it's impacted us. And Jordi, I'm with you. Like we've definitely seen more output in a lot of areas too. We are able to sustain more active candidates in pipeline for recruiting without having any dip in recruiting sentiment. So that's another example of where we definitely see it being positive.
For recruiting, I think that you were big on in person. Like when everyone was going remote, you were like in person. It's our culture. We want to grow this way. I guess that at the beginning was harder, and now it's getting easier. Like you are also like in really important tech hubs. That was like SF, New York, and Berlin. So if you have to be in person somewhere, I guess like that's like the best place to be. So I guess that helps.
Yeah, I think that's right, and I think it's been. Yes, it's definitely gotten easier. And I think people self-select. And like, I have my own personal, very strong opinions on this, but I think that every person is different. And the types of people who are big remote work believers, good for them. They're probably not right for our company anyway. So I think that's like for us, it's always been a selection mechanism on top of we work better.
Yeah, I think that there is a lot of people that are worried or they're afraid of taking a decision and say like, listen, this is our culture. This is how we feel comfortable. This is the thing. So they try to say like, well, there's actually like really good candidates remote too. So let's bring them. Well, why would you not take that talent? They are great. And then like in person, and then it starts creating like some kind of Frankenstein that then is dysfunctional. And it's nobody's fault because they are saying like, well, I am delivering what I promised since the beginning. So I think that it's good to take a stand. And I am sure that you are able to find people that's like, this is what I like. And they actually thrive on that environment.
We are. And look, it's not always been easy, and it impacts top of funnel heavily, right? There's just more candidates on that initial call or when they see in our initial outreach that opt out. But for the people who are in, they're like, this is what I'm looking for. I want a company that's in person, that we are working together every day. I think we find that, and those people are really like, they end up doing really well here. And they tend to just be people who are very successful.
Nice. So now we talk about product. We talk about how you use the tools internally. And the third pillar that you mentioned was selling to AI companies. Who are those companies and what are the expectations?
Yeah, so we don't have logo rights for everyone, but we have some of the leading LLM companies in the world. We have Mistral, Perplexity, quite a few across the board that I do have logo rights for too. And yeah, what we've been doing is I described this briefly before, but there's this idea of all of them need synced data. So a lot of them are using our unified APIs, and it gives them a competitive advantage because they're able to provide, really deep search, really, really thoughtful, knowledgeable answers. And what's interesting too is when you compare MCP, something that's doing RAG with MCP directly and ask it the same question on the side where it's doing RAG with a local vector store, for example, the vector store outperforms every single time. Hands down, it doesn't even come close. Like a 6-year-old could look at the response and be like, oh yeah, that one is just like so much better. And so, we've seen a lot of adoption too of MCP and of our agent handler product by these AI companies. But notably, I think, we're continuing to see unified be a huge driver as well.
I see. So they basically say like, well, we need data, and usually data comes from connections.
Yeah.
Data already exists in some place, and we need a pipe to bring it here. And then the unified thing, it's not only the pipe, but it actually like standardizes how
Right.
it comes. That I think that
Yeah.
even for LLMs, like that's a big, big win to be
Yeah,
able to,
exactly. Because what they're doing is essentially, they're building. You might have seen a pop up in some of the apps you're using that are like connect your work tools to this, and you can talk with it and you can search it. And so when you pop up and connect, that's Merge powering that connection, and then customers are using that and just like blown away by the experience. So they're connecting more software, and so we're just seeing more demand. They want more integrations that are synced data. And so, yeah, it's just a continued investment.
I guess that then you got really happy when MCP started taking off because you were like, well, we are the pipeline, but there was like the last mile that, well, how do we connect this to the LLM? And then someone comes and it's like, well, we have this protocol. And you're like, well, if I plug here,
Yeah.
out of the blue now, they give you
Yeah.
the distribution.
The funny thing too was like when MCP was announced and it came out, everyone on Twitter was like, we saw a ton like Merge is dead. All these companies are dead. And we were like, these people have not seen the inside of our office has been us working on a new agentic integration tool for a while and being like, I wonder if a standard is going to come out for this or if we should come up with one. And so when MCP took off, we were like, all right, sounds good to us. And again, like I think even for us, there was a bit of nerves around MCP and how it would impact synced connectors. But now it's like super clear that they're additive and it actually has only increased demand for synced connectors too.
Yeah, I think that it's a big multiplayer for your company. So right now, MCP, it's also something that I see a lot on Twitter. Like there are like the two bands, people that say like, this is useless. Like I can do this with cold calling any day. And they're like, well, you were not doing it before. You're not doing it now with MCP. And then there are people that like, I was not doing it before MCP and I am doing it now. I actually think that there's a lot of signal there. Like a lot of people like to discuss stuff. And then what I do is like, I take the actions. It's like, well, you were not doing it before. You're not doing it now versus people that say like, well, I was not doing it before and I'm doing it now. So I usually try to listen to the second one.
Yeah. I think MCP, yeah, and these tweets and these like, the people who always tweet, they're like, the next Google killer is here, announcing MCP, and you're just like, shut up. Like that was spreading, and I think that caused a bit of like sort of how do you call? I don't know, like it just the industry went kind of crazy for a while, and I think a lot of the loud voices were investors or people who had never actually touched this stuff but could read about what it was capable of and thought they could form like a really solid argument. But the problem is when you understand the internals of all of these systems and get into the details, like it just doesn't pan out to be as amazing as it was made out to be. A lot of what you think is easy is actually just not super possible with MCP. Right?
How are people integrating these in production environments?
Yeah. So the way that, MCP tool calls work is essentially whenever you make a call via API to one of the LLM providers, they have a tools argument and you just pass in all of the available tools into there and the LLM responds and it might have a message. It might say, make this tool call with these parameters. And so what we've seen is people essentially, the way that agent handler is exposed is a single MCP server that is then backed by all of Merge's built out connectors, security layer, DLP, all of that good stuff off built in. And then that gets just exposed. So basically they get tools and pass that to their agent. And that's how we have then been added into people's production environments. The other thing we've seen for production environments and internal use cases is using Merge with one of these agentic builder platforms like N8N, like, there's a lot of them, but yeah, like N8N, like Zapier, like all those platforms out there, OpenAI agent builder.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that may become a big one. Like if they keep pushing for it and people need more workforce than ever, but we will
Yeah.
see. The one that they see the most is
Yeah, I mean, look,
NA.
it's just in its early days. Like when they announced Agent Builder, I think I was like at my computer. It was like 6 a.m. or something my time, and by 6:10, I had a working demo of Agent Handler in Agent Builder. So
Yeah, that's great. I'm sure that every time that an announcement like this happens, people who are not invested in merge succeeding says like, well, this is going to kill merge. But anyone from inside merge says like, guys, today it's a really lucky day for us.
yeah,
Like our distribution, like our product just got like better for many other people. So we are
yeah.
more valuable.
Yeah. And also, like, even, AI was supposed to be the Google killer because search volume's going down. But, like, if you know anything about Google and read about it, so much AI infrastructure is being hosted on them that GCP revenue, which is a huge driver, is soaring. And so, I bought up stock and, like, as soon as I saw this happening, and it's gone up a ton.
Yeah, for me, it's lovely every time that I see people saying Google is dying. Like I work at IBM, and it's like a 120-year-old company, and it has
Yeah.
been declared there like 15 times, and you're like, they have like hundreds of thousands of people still working. They are not
Of the
going anywhere.
smartest, best talent. Yeah. They'll
Yeah.
pivot.
So there's always more things to do. And in Google, it's especially because it's like edge tech. And you're like, no, like, don't worry. Like, there is still time. Even
Yeah.
if they fumble it, it's not happening right now. But even if they fumble now, life is really long. In
Yeah.
5 years, they could come up with something and say, like, well, actually, we thought that it was dead. But
Yeah. I have a lot of friends who are high up in AI at Google, and they're smart and they're doing some really smart things. And I'm seeing like some of the thoughts or like having, conversations over drinks with them. And I'm like, wow, you're actually like way ahead of what I'm even seeing on Twitter. So
yeah, they are living in the future. So I can wait, for this to start like permeating where
yeah.
the peasants live. So on MCP, you said that with MCP Hammer, like basically the LLM is able to get the tools loaded at runtime. Is that correct? Like at inference time? It seems like different.
Exactly. And so sometimes you'll load them up at the beginning of a conversation and sometimes you'll modify them as the conversation goes.
Nice. What about the tools itself? Not only the, let's say, tools, sorry, but the methods. So not only like this is a connection with a tool, but actually like list, get,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah. So the sort of MCP terms for this, there's none for like the high level, right?
Yeah.
For when you say like, okay, I'll do API to MCP translation. So it's like an API is you have an integration. In MCP, it's an MCP server. It's
Yeah.
a connector. It's, I don't know. Then you have endpoints in an
Hmm.
API integration. You have tools in a MCP server, and tools are not inherently like typed in terms of a method. There's no post or get or whatever because they don't need to be standardized. The whole point is AI can interpret them. So you just put terms in there like create a new employee or retrieve tickets in a list, and the AI is left to then interpret that. And what it does is it calls that tool, and that tool is implemented as a function that makes an API call. So the LLM is actually unaware that that tool is making an API call. It doesn't care what it's doing. It just knows it's sending it some info and it's getting info back. It doesn't know if that tool hits a local database or makes an API call.
I see. And right now, I guess at the level of these tools, as you said, are functions. Do you see agents calling agents
Yeah.
anytime soon, or we are still a bit far from that?
Yeah, so a lot of what you see right now coming out with AI is people seeking deterministic behavior because agents go wild. And so A to A is like really, you're kind of letting two agents just really take off. Whereas when you think about using MCP, even though you're letting the agent decide what tools to call, the actual functionality of what's occurring is still statically defined. And so you end up like you approach more deterministic behavior. A to A, obviously you can still have those agents then calling MCPs. But I think that one of the big challenges is going to be, seeking deterministic behavior there. But I am excited for it. I've read some really cool use cases.
And something that always worries me about MCP, but I don't see people worrying about it. So I don't know if like they are not hitting this problem or what is going on there, is that many times they are using the LLM as a man in the middle. So I call a tool, get a result, take this result and pipe it to the next tool. So you can imagine like if I say, hey, imagine with GitHub, like really, really easy. Iterate over my repositories, and then with the ones that didn't have any issue in the last month, just like close them. Then something that it's tricky here is that it has to iterate over stuff, and that may pollute the context window. then when I actually do a program, I am not reading the output of iterate over the repositories. I have a variable that is repositories, and it doesn't matter if it's 1 or 1 million. But with MCP, it actually matters if it's 1 million. Like, there is no way to say like, well, here are the repositories. This is an iterator. You will be able to call other tools.
Yeah.
People are not hitting these problems, or what am I missing?
Yeah, I mean, that's another reason why MCP isn't good for a lot of use cases. And I was kind of describing this about, like needing to do a quick search, right? I say, what was our revenue in June of 2023? It can search Google files for revenue to try to find board decks from the past, but it's got so many and so much to read through that doesn't work. Versus if that data has been pre-synced and vectorized, that's a single, constant time lookup in the database to get the answers. So yes, people are hitting those problems. And I think that's exactly why people are saying MCP was a bit overhyped. It's not that MCP is bad, and it's not that MCP isn't doing a lot for the world. It's just not capable of everything like people think.
Yeah, like, well, people usually like overstate. Like, with this, you will be able to do everything. And then you try it. It's like, well, it's not everything, so it's shit. And you're like, well, you can do a lot of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, look, MCP, like, again, it's all theoretical, and like, it's great that it can do a lot of these things, but it runs into that limit of, pagination that can be crazy. It also has serious security issues. Genuinely, like, imagine it reads from GitHub, and GitHub's API also just happens to pass back, a secret key for one of the repos from an endpoint because you hit a key endpoint or whatever it is, and your agent has the ability to just send that data anywhere, right? So like for us, that's why our agent handler product has a built-in data loss prevention layer that's scanning for that and flagging it, and will stop the agent from making that call if it detects sensitive data. But a lot of companies aren't doing this. And so they're either going wild and having issues, or security is just blocking the use of MCP and custom agents entirely.
Yeah, I think that most of the people right now fall into these two fields. Like, people that say like, we cannot use this because it's insecure, and other people that says like, what do you mean insecure? That it's also like really, really dangerous. But I think that most of the people who are playing with MCP now are in the second group, because they are the ones that say, like, well, it cannot be that dangerous, and you're like, well,
it's
like, you need to put
it's
some
so
guardrail.
incredibly scary. Like, I love it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to be a fearmonger. Like, I love it. And we have a product for MCP. It's just, you have to use it right. You can't let people, go haywire with it. We're SOC 2 Type 2, ISO 27001, GDPR, HIPAA. Like, we have so many things in place. And so for us, like, we can't allow it. But what we do allow is every time someone creates a workflow, it has to be approved by our security team, and then it can go out. So it adds a roadblock and candidly, that makes people not want to build them as much. So I want us to get to a world where we don't have to do that, but we have to be realistic. Like, we cannot have, people who understand very little about application security other than their annual training, deciding like, hit Salesforce and here's a million other destinations you can send things to.
Yeah. And to be fair, if you are selling to enterprise, they actually want you to build that. So it's like, well, I would like to sell you the other thing. Like, that's like the future that we will be in. And they are like, yeah, okay. But by now, I want my IT to always review it. Full stop. And you're like, okay, so we can build that today. And I think that's what many people are missing, because mainly like they are small startups. Like, well, you cannot go wild here. It's like, well, enterprises have already like the workflows of how this has to, like the processes, not the workflows, sorry, of how these things have to be done. So now you just have an LLM like creating them, and then humans approving it.
So true.
And for authentication and authorization, are you getting any blockers there? So for example, there is a big move for OAuth and MCP. As someone who sells to enterprise, I'm sure that you hear about OAuth every day, multiple times.
Yeah.
Do you think that something else will appear, or we're going to like evolve OAuth, or we don't even need to evolve it, and what we have, it's already like enough for these use cases?
I mean, with the way that we built it, it works totally fine. So we support, we support OAuth and all forms of authentication for MCP. So the way that we do it is, when you start talking to an MCP server, your identity is passed to us as an ID. And we see, has this identity already authenticated? Do we have credentials for them? And if not, we always return a single tool to the front end, or to the agent, that is, authenticate this user. We provide a component that pops up And our customer, when they get an authenticate user tool call, they show that component. Their user goes through, puts in their credentials, or goes through an OAuth flow, or does whatever's necessary. This is our sort of onboarding widget. When they're done, they then have access, and then our tool endpoint starts returning the other tools, everything that's available. So we haven't run into those issues because we've built on top of it. I don't see a problem with standard OAuth, other than I don't see a lot of adopting it. Like a lot of older companies. Going forward, everyone builds with OAuth now, but the problem is like the vast majority of software that's used by enterprise is legacy, and that legacy software mostly doesn't use OAuth.
Yeah, I think that it would be really hard to change how big companies are working today, because something that they have going for them is this idea of most of the software may be written in the next 5 years. So it's something that, like it's a good opportunity for something new to appear. But anything that is fighting how companies are working today, I think that it's a kind of a losing strategy.
Yeah, I agree. I think one interesting piece is that this will force more as a standard, right? But hear me out. This will force more standardization of OAuth because we have built 8 different implementations of OAuth with all the providers that we integrate with, because nobody does it right. So we've built the proper way, and then we've built 7 variants of people who interpreted how to build it wrong and just build something. In fact, one of them, we were able to just literally click a button and get all the tokens for all users because there was a bug. We obviously immediately reported it to them, did a responsible disclosure, but that sort of thing is like, people aren't building right. And at least with this, it's like they'll test it with MCP and they'll be like, okay, this is work. It was built right because it works.
Yeah, I think that people are going to fall into this idea of we have 17 standards. We just need a standard now for this stuff. And reality is like, we are going to have 17 standards or 17 implementations of the same standards that are like slightly compatible, but have edges. And to be fair, this is something that you are going to have to fight as the main connector and integrator of all of this. And people will take it just for granted. It's like, how hard can it be to build what Merge built? It's just like one thing. And you're like, well, you had to be there.
Go for it. Do it. See why companies pay us millions a year to build what we build.
Makes sense. And how do you see the company evolving? Like, what's changed in the last 2 years? Like, do you still have the same mission, or you have like to rewrite a bit of how the world will look like, and then what's your spot there?
Yeah. So the value of integrations is only rising. The value of customer data. I talked about this when I talked about how we've moved to this agentic world where everyone has the same models, and so we've been forced. Like from the beginning, our goal was not build unified APIs or. Our goal was always make secure data access easy. Companies need access to their customers' data. We need to make that trivial because it is otherwise an almost impossible problem. And so we did that. We continued on that path. But again, now with AI, it's like, what is the path forward? And that is agentic connections. I don't believe that in perpetuity, agentic connections aren't going to win out, right? You're going to see more determinism from better frameworks, but also from better models. And then you're going to see better access patterns in APIs. So as these APIs start to open up more, start to offer their own search endpoints, which again, they might not do that because it's expensive. But once they do that, there's no reason to bring a copy of the data set anymore. Let your agent just willy-nilly on the fly kind of do everything. So I'm excited for us to move towards that world, and we're ahead of that right now. I don't think that MCP is here today in the sense that we are going to build overnight, multi-billion-dollar product just on MCP, but I definitely see it growing, and it's important that we're in early.
And I see Merge as a leader in this category. And then something that always has me like, I have a lot of questions about, it's about pricing. So when you are the leader in the category and then this new thing happens and then you have to price it, how do you do that?
Yeah. So my co-founder actually was on a podcast today where she talked about this, but it's kind of a few things. So one is, this is a new product. We don't necessarily have the same principles as our original product, but all that being said, we are high quality product builders. We build for enterprise and we build with no mistakes. And when they occur, our team is on it. We have the best customer support, the best customer service, and you can't be the best and be the cheapest. So we've never aimed to be the cheapest. There are companies who want to be buyers for that type of software, and that's fine. This is mission critical software, and we know if we were buying it, we'd want to buy whatever it costs for quality software. That doesn't mean we charge whatever we want. We seek standard SaaS margins based on our costs, which are higher than that of the competition out there. So we really pride ourselves on that. We make it very clear to our customers, the services, the support we offer. We try to, offer numbers that show how our integrations perform better, how they scale better, how we're the only platform that scales to enterprise, for example. So I think it goes through all of that. And then of course, we do have to see, what is willingness to pay here? What are our costs on this? And so we ended up pricing per tool call on our new category, or sorry, on our new product. And then on our old product, we charge based on the number of connected customers that you have.
I see. I guess that there's a lot of trust already with your customers. So when you come with agents and then changing this thing of, listen, we never fail. Like our thing works perfectly. Integrations are there. When they start using agents and they see failures, do they blame you or they say like, well, yeah, I understand that it comes from the agent and it's not a you thing?
Yeah. Yeah, I think most people understand that because we're not like, if you think about it, we are not a agent builder software, right? So we're not
Mhm.
currently being consumed heavily by non-technical builders. There are some for sure, but not. And for the ones that are, they're relatively technical because they're using an agent builder, they're plugging merge into it. So I think most people get it, but we do occasionally get, yeah, like, the parameters keep being passed wrong. And we're like, well, that's kind of the agent. But at the same time, it's not only the agent because for those, a lot of times, like better descriptions, better schemas, those can actually coerce the agent into sending better parameters. So a lot of times when someone sends us that and they're like, my agent keeps getting this wrong, we're like, we'll fix this.
I was mentioning this exactly for that reason, because I think that merge is in a really good position because a lot of people are going to create prompts and agents to tailor to the, not the tools itself as in MCP, but actually to the platform that it's behind those tools.
Yeah.
So for example, they want to say like, hey, I got a lot of prompts to make sure that it uses GitHub properly. And you're like, okay, but why doesn't GitHub already give you an only one endpoint that takes like natural text, and then it's the one that knows how to do these workflows? Because after
Yeah.
all, like who better to use the tool than the platform itself? And then you are the ones that are even better than the platform itself because you are seeing how everyone is using it. So
Yeah.
like you can bring a lot of value of, okay, like don't worry, like we can help you there.
Yeah, and you still run into the problem of like, if let's say GitHub has their endpoint that's like the workflow calculator or like the tools you need to call, it's still, let's say you have now 10 platforms. How does your agent know? Like we need to ask GitHub for which actions when they say, check out my code, like how does it know which MCP server? Versus Merge, we actually have a tool search endpoint. You feed it an intent, which is just a string, sentence, whatever the user queried, and we return back the tools that should be called to accomplish that.
That's
So
relevant.
look, I think the LLMs are pretty good at it. The reason that we have that endpoint is more so for tool explosion, which we see a lot of now, where someone adds 1,000 tools to their agent, and all of a sudden that agent's context window is eaten and it doesn't work anymore.
I see. And how do you see a merge evolving in the next like 12 to 18 months? Like what do you think that you are going to be doing
Yeah,
more and more?
we're gonna be doing a lot. So I think we're doubling down on both paths. We are really staying ahead of the agentic trend here and investing a lot in our agent handler product. So what companies need, both internal and customer facing, to successfully launch agents that are secure, that are authenticated, that have logging and visibility and observability, and are mostly deterministic. We're really invested in that problem, like a lot of companies, candidly. And then we're continuing to double down on all of our unified products. We're launching new categories. We've been working really closely with, again, some large LLM providers on, offering additional integrations. So that means introducing chat as a category for us. That means introducing email and calendar potentially. We have a lot in the books for new integrations. And then lastly, just heavy work on scalability and anything that helps us reach enterprise. So there's infrastructure scalability. There is on-prem deployments, which we have with a lot of our largest customers now. Just a ton across the board.
Yeah, like these things about like improving infrastructure and reliability, it's a typical thing that when you test something, you're like, I can do this in a weekend. This is what people on Hacker News would tell you. And you're like, okay, good luck, because most of the thing, like you just see the type of the iceberg. And
Yeah,
it's really nice because most of the time when people talk about what they are going to do in the next 12 months, they like to say like the shiny, spotty things. It's like, well, no, we're going to do a lot of core to make sure that everything runs smoothly.
totally.
Customers expect so.
Yeah, look, there was an API provider, and I think they reached out to us and said we were 20% of their AWS bill, and they're big. They're a big company that everyone has heard of. They said we had increased to become basically 20% of their AWS bill, and we worked with them. We were like, just add this one endpoint, it'll make our syncs much more efficient. So we worked with them to do that, and then it came down a ton. But you know how much infra and work we have to put in to be able to be 20% of someone's AWS bill. So it's not easy. Like this stuff does not just naturally scale, especially when these third parties like can fail at any moment for any reason. They can return success codes when they actually failed and knock off all your pagination. There's just so many problems that people don't think about.
For the agentic part that you mentioned, is this something that usually it's your customers that they are asking you, or it's something that you're anticipating of, well, this is going to be needed, so better build it now?
It's both. I mean, we're seeing a ton of demand for it. Don't get me wrong. Like we are actively have millions in pipe for this product. And it's across a bunch of different types of use cases. So we see heavy demand for companies building internal assistants. So sort of specialized knowledge bots that are shared, internal chat GPT basically, but it's connected to all your tools. It understands your processes, like, hey, go tell sourcing that we need to order more metal pipes. And it knows how to successfully create all that, who to route it to, all of that good stuff. So we're seeing a lot of usage for that. And then we are seeing a lot for customer facing chat applications, things like Perplexity, which uses our integrations as well.
Makes a lot of sense. So Gil, we're getting close to the end of the episode. I really enjoyed this, but I usually end up with a couple of questions, one positive and one negative. And I would love to hear your takes on this. So the first one is, what would you like to see more in the world of AI in the next 6 to 12 months?
It's a good question. I want to see more people not being afraid of it and rushing to adopt it. And the reason is I think people really overcomplicate. So there's a couple reasons. I think one, people overcomplicate AI in their heads quite a bit. Ultimately, the only interface for AI is prompts. So when you see someone who's like, I'm chaining agents and I'm doing all this, like they have a prompt and then another prompt and another prompt, and it's just inputs and outputs. Like there's nothing fancy there. I think the other fear that people have is like, if I use this and I'm actually good with it, and I might realize that it's good at my job and I might not have a job. And I think there's an inherent fear of people coming to that realization. So I want to see people getting over that fear, understanding it's actually a really simple thing and adopting it more broadly. I know that's like sort of kind of the question was like, what do I want to see more of in AI? But it's AI usage.
Yeah. That's a really good one. I think that you're the first one that said this one. And I think that I would also appreciate the world, more people taking advantage of the tools that we have nowadays, because they're amazing.
They're amazing. And people are like, oh, there's an AI bubble. And I'm like, my mom barely knows what ChatGPT is. The other day, someone asked me what the interface for ChatGPT is. It a website? Is it I'm like, the fact that people don't even know what ChatGPT is, yet we are building sophisticated agents internally. Like there's so much room to grow here and you have to get on it now.
Yeah. I remember even 12 months ago, people were saying already we're in a bubble, and I was in a SF, and I was like, hey, you go to Gilroy, you ask about Anthropic, and it's like, what?
Yeah. What's the use?
Cat.
Yeah. And look, like two things can be true in that we are in a bubble like the .com bubble, but that didn't mean that the internet wasn't going to be much bigger than it was during the .com bubble. So we might have a bunch of companies funded right now that are not going to do well, not going to succeed, but AI is not going anywhere. And the TAM of AI is going to be bigger than the GDP of the world. So
exactly. And so the counterpoint to this is, what would you like to see less happening?
It's a good question. I think one thing that's been top of mind for us is candidates using AI in the recruiting process. We see it. We see their eyes and then them coming up with some genius solution or them doing 10 times better virtually than in person. It's just so obvious to us. And so I just think candidates don't not use AI, but be honest about what you're doing. Disclose it if you are going to use it, because we see it. And when we see it and it feels like you're being deceptive, it's just a no. We don't care how well you've done. If you're a deceptive person, you're not for us. So yeah, just be upfront, be honest. If the process says you can use AI, use it all you want. If they say you need to disclose it, but just be careful and don't cheat.
Yeah, I remember some company that actually the mode was cheat on everything.
Oh yeah. Well, that's what everyone's using. Cluely, that's the tool that everyone's using. It puts the little it puts a semi-transparent thing over your screen. So when someone's talking to you, it's like writing the answers over their screen, and so they're not looking all over the place, but you can see them look around a little bit. And you just know their language changes from something to clearly just being read to you.
To make sure people understand this, because we're really excited about it and we're saying it with a big smile, but this is not good advertisement for that tool. What we are saying is if you are using AI, just say it, but there is no need of cheating, because people can see it and actually makes you look really, really bad. and you
Makes you
are
look
out of
really
the race.
bad. We say no brilliant jerks. The same thing applies. Like no brilliant cheaters or no, like, yeah, I don't care how well you've done. Like you cheat, you're out. Like that's it. We are not cheaters. We win by competing, by working hard. And like that is how we operate as a business. We work hard. We do not cheat. We do not copy our competitors, which they do. And that's fine because that keeps us on the cutting edge, right? So we want people who are believe that you win by working hard, by doing research, by putting in the time and using AI, but using it in the right ways.
Excellent. So I really enjoyed this conversation, and I can wait for, in 6, 8 months, touch base and say like, hey, you were right in both things. Like more people are using AI and nobody's cheating.
Yeah, I hope so.
Excellent, Gil. So thank you very much. Talk to you soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Jordi.
Have a good one.